Probably.
Yeah, oh yeah, here she is. It's Inga.
Okay, why don't you start by introducing yourselves and how you are related to the Meltzer family?
Okay.
You're the oldest.
I know. I said I'll go first. I'm Carol Rogers Fridlin, and I am Brady Meltzer's oldest granddaughter, oldest grandchild. There are 16 grandchildren in total, and have enjoyed this family all these years. I'm 77 years old, if we want to put some perspective onto the timeline. It's my brother. This is my baby brother.
Yeah. I'm Tom Rogers. I'm 71 years old. Anyway, I was Brady's favorite grandson. I'll just phrase it that way, in my shy, introverted way. Sue?
Hi. I don't know if you get this or not, but I'm Susan Rogers Boylick Smith, and I am Brady's grandson, and I am Carol and Tom's baby sister. I'm actually the youngest. I'm only 52. And I grew up at the farm.
Okay, and you are Betty's children, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and can you tell me more about Betty?
Oh.
Well, Elizabeth was the oldest of the three children. She was the only one of the three children not born in the brick house. She was actually born in a house that no longer exists across the street from St. Vincent Church.
Yeah, Kenny's Root Beer Stand is what the lot was called for years, and now it's the diner.
Brady grew up in what was Martha's house, and now grandchildren are in it. But he grew up in that house, and his father was it Tom? It was Tom. No, Philip. Philip Meltzer. I'm sorry, Philip Meltzer. And Philip and Romaine Meltzer, and he and his sister Cora grew up in that house. The brick house was owned by, you can look through the history, a variety of Meltzers after it was built by Frederick. And then it came up for sale. So his mother still lived. His father had passed away. His mother still lived in the White House, and he bought the brick house, and Martha and Philip were both born in that house.
I know Uncle Frank had the farmhouse before Brady.
Okay. And Elizabeth, of course, Grandpa was not a Catholic, but he married a Catholic, my grandmother Louise, and so off to church they went at St. Vincent forever and ever. The Meltzer, or the Whirling family that she was from, apparently donated the land that sits on. So both sides of that family have a tremendous amount of history, both eligible for DAR on both sides of that family.
That was Grandma Romaine.
Yeah. But Elizabeth was a lot of fun. She and Philip were actually the closest instead of Martha. She always said she and Philip used to take the guns and go out in the woods, and Martha would stay home and help her mom in the kitchen. So very much a tomboy, which I am too. I think I got it directly from my mother. There was never any place more important to her in the whole wide world than this land right here in Shelby County. She went to IU, as did her sister Martha, and my mother met my dad at IU, and he was from East Chicago, Indiana, and he was a city boy. He didn't get this at all. So we moved around a lot, always in town. We were townies, as people call people today. And there, like I said, 6 of us, and there's a 15-year gap from top to bottom. Polio was a big deal when I was born, and so if a family could, they left town the minute school was out because it was dangerous to be in the summertime in towns. So a lot of people today pack up and go camping or pack up and go to a lake. We packed up and came to the farm. So from my earliest memories, every summer of my entire life, we came down here and stayed first with my grandmother and grandfather, she died when I was 4 years old. But then after that, it was with my grandfather. And my mother, packed us up and came. My dad visited occasionally.
There was a reason for that, though. The timing that we would come down and stay for a visit coincided perfectly with Friendship's national shoot, right? Because Grandpa would go to Friendship. Now, we would stay a lot longer than the two. Okay, Cletus. That's Cletus. Anyway, putting in his 2 cents. He's agreeing. Anyway, because Grandpa liked to go down there and shoot. And so they kind of formed Friendship, him and his friends. They found that nice little alcove, and it turned into the National Muzzleloading Rifle Association headquarters.
Anything about Mother? Susan,
Oh, anything about Mother?
Yeah, she lived to be 98 years old.
Yep.
She was quite a
She was
lady.
98, and she loved the farm, and she kept telling in her last days how she was planning on moving down there and talking about the reunion and things that she was going to do. So she was that was a good place to be. And when my father and mother were going through a divorce, Mom packed up the kids not just for the summer, but we moved in with Grandpa. I was 3 years old, and we lived there until the day he died. I was 10 years old, so it was like 1971, 70, somewhere in there. I think 71. And but he was then the head of the household. My father was not around, so it was Mom. And for a very short time, Jim, John, Tom, Barbara, and me. We all were raised there at the farm. But of course, Jim was much older, and he graduated high school and joined the Navy. And then John, same thing. And so really, it sort of became mostly Tommy, Barbara, and me living there until Grandpa died.
Yeah. Just a story you may never have heard.
Yeah.
I was away at nursing school because my Aunt Charlene was a nurse, and I adored her, and so my cousin Marcia and I, the oldest of Martha's children, we are both nurses, and I came home from school, and your mother and Susan were playing on the front porch. They were playing Barbies, and Karen says to Susan, "Who's that?" And Susan said, "Mom says she's a sister, and she used to live with us all the time."
Oh, that's funny.
I told them about season.
What?
She calls him as she sees him.
Oh, yeah. Right. So we did have a bit of an age difference between all the children.
Yeah, I was the last shot of the baby sister that she would have been able to play with, but I turned out to be another brother.
Yeah.
She had a rough life in that
I did.
aspect.
I
She
wanted
had
sisters.
3
so
younger
bad.
brothers.
Well, and if you want to hear a story about Betty and Grandpa and the farm, when we moved in, when I was a tiny little child and all the kids were still around, it was such a complete and utter disaster. There was a bandsaw in the living room full of, and I can't even tell you what the rest of the house looked like. Grandpa was not very good using his spittoon. And for a while, all of us slept in one bed. It was a trundle bed, so it was a high posted bed, and the boys slept in that on the top, and they pulled out the trundle, and Barbara and I slept on that until we could get those bedrooms cleaned and all moved into our own.
It's all true. Yeah.
Yeah, Grandpa's big thing was he would go to sales. He loved sales. So he would buy things, and it'd be in boxes, whether it be magazines, rocks, who knows, whatever he'd buy. And he'd always tell Philip, just put it upstairs, right? Well, every room was packed, ceiling to floor with junk upstairs, right? So we wound up trying to get things back, and it was interesting.
And Mom worked really hard. That was not
Oh, she did work
small
hard, yeah.
undertaking by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah. Hard worker. So what else do you have?
I'm going to start a new recording.